demand notices. Because demand notice is just like a letter notifying taxpayers you are owing for so and so period. Some of our sectors make use of this. We have the people from LASEPA, the people from Land Bureau, we have people from TAMA also. They make use of demand notice. This demand notice is being generated from our end, which will now be distributed to the taxpayers that are defaulting. We do send SMS to taxpayers. Why do we send SMS to them? One, we've been able to get their information. We have their phone number with us, we have their address, and because we have been able to update our database with all the necessary information about taxpayer, what we do is that once we discover a taxpayer is defaulting, we forward an SMS to them via our ePay application. The ePay application is so unique in such a way that apart from sending SMS to our taxpayer, you can also preview all the receipts that have been generated for such an individual with the use of the payer ID, which I talked about the other time. So we do send SMS to taxpayer, and immediately our SMS, in form of text message, get to them on their phone. Immediately, most cases we get response. We find taxpayers calling back our number, telling us, oh, very soon we'll raise a check for that effect. And it has really helped the Lagos State government tremendously in getting back all their outstanding payee and the fines outside. We do generate a report also, which is called watch list. From our hand there, we make use of our skipping and the trend, the collection trend. What do we mean by this watch list? This watch list has been designed in such a way that all the funds of Lagos State government that are hanging outside are now calculated together. We now present it to Lagos State government. Look, this is the amount that is hanging outside. How do we come about this? After printing a report which is called skipping, this skipping shows us the companies that are not paying regularly. We now look at the months that have been paid for, the outstanding months. What has been paid so far? What has been paid so far, we categorize them under total. After adding this amount together, we now divide it by the number of months that have been paid for. This will help us to have an average of what is outstanding. Immediately we get an outstanding of the average of the outstanding. We now send it to Lagos State government and see, these companies have paid for 12 months for the past 3 years. The remaining 2 years they've not paid so far. So it helps Lagos State government to know that, okay, some accountants, they are doing what? They are making use of their money for the meantime instead of everything at the appropriate time. And this has really helped Lagos State government so far, because apart from the fact that it gives them an insight of what is outside, it also helps us to know more about these companies, because by so doing, when we send the list to LIRS, they do go to their company. Sometimes they send a letter or they visit them, and by visiting the accountant, we know that somebody is really watching my profile with the Lagos State government. So there's nowhere for them to hide, and it has helped the revenue to increase so far. We also prepare, we do follow up on the informal sector. I've been mentioning payee so far, talking about companies. What about the little income earners? What about the artisans? What about the hairdressers? Don't we bring them into the tax net? We do. We do that with the help of the informal sector. The informal sector deals with this set of people through their association. Because they have a body that is guiding them, what we do is that we now liaise with their association in penetrating through them. They have a minimum fund of 2005, which they pay to Lagos State government, and by so doing, after making payment through the association, all the necessary receipts, card, or whatever that they need to show as an evidence of payment, we issue it to them. And then also from our end, even those that are remitting payee, how do we now encourage them to get an evidence of payment? It's another thing for me to be working in the company, to have remitted my payee for a year. It's another thing for me to have an evidence that this money is being deducted from my salary. So what we do is that we check the profile of companies with us. We check their staff strength. We now check our system, liaising with the other department that are printing their card. How many cards have been applied for by such company? When we discover that they did not apply for the number, that the capacity that they have, we send a letter to them or we call their accountants, encouraging them to get an evidence of payment for their staff. And as much as possible, this has helped even the taxpayers that cannot come directly for their card. It has helped them to know that this is their right and it is free of charge. They have to get it. So also, at the point of checking our profile, making sure that companies are making payments, what then do we now do to encourage the accountant that this money you are paying, you are not just paying it for fun. This money you are paying is getting to the appropriate quarter. What we do is that we now track down the payment that is being made by accountants, association, or individuals. How do we do that? At the bank level, e-pay application has been deployed to all collecting banks, and which means that once a teller is collecting money, you don't just post it to your own menu, you also post it to the menu of Lagos State government. And in the course of posting, we have special code, we have revenue code, we have agency code, and we have payer ID. All these are numbers, but they are very unique in the sense that it helps us to track down the payment. One, it helps us to know the account we are going to post the transaction to. Two, it helps us to know the agency that owns the money. And three, it helps us to have a unique number for the taxpayer himself in terms of the payer ID. And as much as possible, we encourage the teller to make use of the correct payer ID, the correct agency code, and also the correct revenue code. Once all this can be done, it will help us to track the payment, because once an hairdresser is telling us I've made payment, even if it's my friend, I can easily go to the system, query the system, looking at the nature of business he or she is. We just query the system, I will be able to get it. But when a wrong revenue code or agency code is used, even when a taxpayer is claiming I've paid, when we check the system, we find it difficult to trace. And this can cause problem, you understand? When the taxpayer is giving us information, I've paid, and we check our system, the money is not there. And as much as possible, at the end of the posting of the transaction, it is expected that a receipt is generated. That's the automated receipt. This is a copy of the automated receipt, which is expected to be generated at the point of posting. Once that transaction has been posted into e-pay application, automatically a receipt will come up. But when there is no network, maybe offline posting, it is expected that the temporary receipt will come up. That temporary receipt will be printed on a blank sheet of paper. There has been so many instances whereby tellers will tell the customer, come back next week for your receipt. It shouldn't be. Once a taxpayer is being told, come back next week, it means that that transaction has not been posted. Because once it is being posted, it is either an automated receipt or a temporary receipt to be generated. And this same receipt, the two of them has the same value, because the same information that is needed concerning the taxpayer will come up. But as much as possible, we try to encourage people, don't just make payments, because your teller is not an evidence of payment. Teller is not enough, so we encourage them to get the receipt from the bank. So this has really helped us in generating an immediate report concerning transaction. Because once a transaction is posted this morning, we can easily generate a report from our end here. And as much as possible, the EPS and e-pay application has been designed in such a way that any report that you need, maybe from agency level, from individual level, or even from companies level, we can easily track down information concerning such taxpayer.